There's a big difference between winning a game and showing real signs of growth. And if you watch the Steelers' 23-9 win over the Browns, you might have noticed something more important than just the final score. This team is finally starting to look like a unit that knows how to win the right way. This wasn't about a fluky bounce, a broken play, or just surviving a messy afternoon. This was a team playing smarter, tougher football on both sides of the ball, especially in the trenches, and that's the kind of thing that creates real hope, not just hype. Right off the bat, it felt like one of those gritty AFC North matchups. Not always pretty, but brutally honest. And for all the jokes and jabs that people love to make about the Browns, they didn't show up as pushovers. They came in with a defense that's arguably one of the most dominant in the entire NFL. So the challenge was real, and if you just glanced at the standings and expected a walk in the park, that's on you. The Steelers knew better. Mike Tomlin knew better. And judging by the way this team played, every guy in that locker room knew better too. The focus going into this one was clear. The offensive line had to deliver. This wasn't just another game. It was a test against a front seven that loves to wreck game plans and take over in the backfield. And somehow, the Steelers passed that test. Spencer Anderson got back in a mix with 17 snaps, just like he had overseas in Dublin, and even with the offense leaning less on tight in Darnell Washington as a blocker, the line held up. The Browns' front, with all their firepower, got shut down completely. No sacks, no takeaways, not even a real highlight to hang their hats on. And yes, that includes Myles Garrett, who finished the day with only 2 assisted tackles. That's it. When you go toe-to-toe with someone like Garrett and come out clean, that's more than a win. That's a statement. Broderick Jones and Isaac Sumalo did exactly what they were brought in to do: anchor, battle, and outwork the guy across from them. That was the tone of the game, and the Steelers just leaned into it. Not only that, but they did it without having to rely on heavy protection or gimmicks. They simply lined up and went to work, drive after drive. This was about being physical and patient, about wearing the opponent down instead of just looking for explosive plays. And it worked. The run game, which was clearly the priority heading into this week, did enough. Not record-breaking, but enough. 100 yards total on the ground, led by Jalen Warren with 52, Kenny Gainwell adding 22, and Caleb Johnson chipping in 15, including a beautiful 9-yard burst that helped move the chains. The numbers weren't eye-popping, but the timing was everything. That ability to keep the chains moving, to stay ahead of the sticks, that's what set up the rest of the offense. And speaking of the offense, for once it wasn't just the defense carrying the weight. Aaron Rodgers, finally getting time and space, was able to go downfield, and not just on dink-and-dunk stuff. Real aggressive throws. The kind that challenge corners, stretch safeties, and flip field position in a heartbeat. DK Metcalf led the way with 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown, showing off exactly why he's a nightmare in open space. He played like the number 1 guy everyone knows he can be, and the play calling gave him the chances to shine. It wasn't just about chucking it deep for the sake of it. There was structure, rhythm, and balance to what the Steelers were doing offensively, and that's a huge step forward. The tight ends got more involved. The pass protection stayed strong. The offense didn't turn a ball over once. And all of that matters, especially when you consider the caliber of defense they were up against. This wasn't a broken team the Steelers bullied. This was a top-tier defense, and Pittsburgh's offense out-executed them in every key moment. That's how you know things are trending in the right direction. On the other side of the ball, things were a bit more straightforward. The Steelers' defense continues to look like a unit that's finding its identity again. Fast, physical, relentless. For all the early season hiccups and questions about communication, this group looks dialed in. For at least 2 quarters, they had all their key personnel on the field, and it showed. Guys like Joey Porter, Darius Slay, and Brandon Eccles got nicked up as the game went on, but the overall cohesion was there. More importantly, you saw the kind of swarming defense that Pittsburgh fans have been waiting to see. One guy makes contact, and suddenly 2 or 3 more are there to clean it up. That's the DNA of Steelers football, and it's coming back to life. PTO and Wilson explained it perfectly after the game. There's a fluidity now in how the defense operates. The communication is cleaner. The calls are coming in at the right time. The coverages and blitzes are complementing each other. It's not just about big hits and splash plays anymore. It's about consistency. It's about playing fast without playing out of control. And this game had all of that. The stats tell the story. 6 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, and 8 passes defended. Honestly, they should have had a handful of interceptions too. The Browns quarterback kept putting the ball in harm's way, and somehow Pittsburgh came up empty on picks. But if that's your biggest complaint, you're doing something right. What stood out the most defensively was the unpredictability. Pittsburgh didn't just rush for and drop back into vanilla coverage. They brought heat from different angles. They used zone blitzes. They disguised coverages. They kept the Browns guessing all afternoon. Even Jalen Ramsey got in on the action, recording 2 sacks, including one on a perfectly timed blitz. That kind of creativity, that's coaching, and that's a sign that this staff is starting to find its groove as well. And look, it's not just about the scheme or the individual stats. It's about the bigger picture. This was a game where the Steelers imposed their will. They played with a level of physicality that matched, and at times exceeded, what the Browns brought to the table. And this wasn't just a fluke performance. This was a team building off what they started before the bye week, building off that energy they brought home from Dublin. This was continuation. This was confirmation. They're moving in the right direction. So yeah, the record might improve again on Thursday night against the Bengals. That's the next opportunity. But don't get too caught up in just the standings. What matters is how the Steelers are winning. What matters is that both sides of the ball are growing, that the offense isn't just surviving anymore, but actually dictating the tempo, and that the defense is finally looking like a unit with real bite again. This wasn't a perfect game, but it was an important one. A loud, physical, relentless statement that this team might be more than just a middle-of-the-pack fighter in a messy division. And maybe what makes this even more encouraging is that for the first time in a while, it felt like the coaching staff was not just reacting, but actually leading. You could feel in the play calling, in the way they adjusted mid-game, and how they trusted players to step into key roles without overthinking every snap. This wasn't about sticking to a rigid script or praying the other team made more mistakes. It was about having a plan, believing in it, and letting it unfold organically over 4 quarters. And when that plan works, it builds something stronger than just confidence. It builds identity. Mike Tomlin, who's taken his fair share of heat in recent seasons for playing things too safe or too traditional, looked different on the sideline. His decisions weren't just safe, they were timely. They showed a willingness to trust younger players, to adapt based on flow rather than strictly on analytics or tendencies. There's something to be said for knowing when to push the pedal and when to pull it back, and the Steelers managed that balance beautifully in this one. Even small things like when to go up-tempo, when to bring an extra protection, when to challenge deep, it all came together like a team that's finally starting to believe in its own process. And that credit doesn't just stop with Tomlin. Arthur Smith, calling plays with more rhythm and more variety, deserves recognition. This wasn't a game of repeated inside runs and conservative screen passes. There was creativity, motion, pre-snap misdirection, things that stress a defense and create hesitation. Terrell Austin on the defensive side brought the kind of aggression that we haven't consistently seen, dialing up pressures from unexpected spots and trusting his secondary to handle one-on-ones when it counted. These aren't just surface-level changes. These are signs of a coaching staff learning from early mistakes and evolving, something that's often talked about but rarely executed this cleanly. You can't overlook how much of a difference that evolution makes when you're facing a defense as strong as Cleveland's. This group wasn't just out there to slow the game down. They were trying to set a tone, to knock the Steelers off their rhythm. And yet, Pittsburgh never blinked. The offensive line didn't panic. The backs kept pushing for tough yards. The receivers fought through contact to make plays downfield. It felt like every part of the game plan was designed with the understanding that this would be a test of more than skill. And the Steelers met that challenge head on. Now, let's talk about the physicality. That word gets tossed around a lot in football, but here it was real. From the opening drive, both sides were thumping. You could hear the collisions echo across the stadium. And instead of shying away from it or trying to finesse their way out of trouble, the Steelers embraced it. They didn't just match Cleveland's energy, they raised it. That matters, because in this division, especially when you get into late October and November, finesse doesn't win games. Toughness does. Durability does. And Pittsburgh looked like a team that's ready for that stretch run. Even after a few guys went down mid-game, Joey Porter, Darius Slay, Brandon Eccles, there was no drop in energy, no loss of identity. The next man stepped up and kept the same edge. That's not just good coaching. That's a locker room culture starting to take root again. One where guys know their role, know what's expected, and are ready to execute when their number's called. And when you have that kind of buy-in from top to bottom, you're never really out of the game, no matter what the scoreboard says. Defensively, one of the most impressive things wasn't just the sack numbers or the quarterback hits. It was how often they forced the Browns to play from behind the chains. 1st and 10 became 2nd and 13. 2nd and manageable turned into 3rd and long. And when that happens over and over again, you were a team out mentally as much as physically. The Browns started pressing, forcing throws, and that's where Pittsburgh started feasting. The fact that they didn't come away with an interception feels almost like a statistical anomaly, because the opportunities were definitely there. But even without the picks, they dictated the terms. And that's what great defenses do. They force you to play their game. They make your quarterback uncomfortable. They take away your 1st and 2nd reads and make you guess. And by the 4th quarter, Cleveland looked like a team that had run out of ideas. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when your entire defense is playing in sync, front to back, sideline to sideline. You also saw something else important in this win: composure. There were moments where the game could have turned. A bad call, a missed block, a drop on 3rd down. But the Steelers didn't spiral. They didn't start pointing fingers or getting sloppy. They regrouped. They responded. That's a big deal, especially with such a young core in key spots. It's easy to talk about leadership, about resilience, but this team showed it. You could see it in the way Aaron Rodgers kept control of the offense, the way the line communicated in tough spots, the way the defense stayed aggressive without losing discipline. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers around Pittsburgh have taken a new turn this week, as the Steelers are reportedly closing in on a deal with rookie sensation Michael Barrett. Sources close to the organization hint that the front office is betting on youth to shake up a defense that has struggled to find consistency over the past seasons. While nothing is officially confirmed, insiders suggest Barrett's signing could be the spark the Steelers desperately need. Barrett, a player who made waves in college with his relentless speed and instinctive playmaking, is being pegged as a potential game-changer. Teams across the league reportedly kept an eye on him during the draft, drawn to his ability to read plays, close gaps quickly, and bring a rare intensity to every snap. For the Steelers, known historically for a rugged defensive identity, Barrett represents a blend of athleticism and raw potential, a young talent who could infuse energy into a unit that has occasionally looked sluggish in high-pressure moments. The timing of the move is raising eyebrows. Steelers fans have endured seasons of defensive highs and lows, and the chatter around Barrett suggests that Pittsburgh is aiming to accelerate a rebuild rather than rely solely on veteran consistency. He's fearless, fast, and eager to prove himself, one anonymous source claimed. The kind of guy who can lift the whole locker room without saying a word. Analysts are already speculating how Barrett would fit alongside seasoned defenders, imagining a dynamic rotation that mixes experience with explosive youth. Rumors hint that the contract details remain under wraps, but the energy around the potential signing is undeniable. Fans have taken to social media, debating whether Barrett's addition could mark a turning point or simply be a gamble on untapped promise. If reports hold true, the Steelers might have quietly secured a player whose upside could redefine the team's defensive approach for years to come. As training camp approaches, the buzz surrounding Michael Barrett is only intensifying. Whether he becomes a household name in Pittsburgh or remains an intriguing rookie prospect is yet to be seen, but one thing is clear. The Steelers are chasing excitement, and Barrett could be exactly the kind of spark that sets their defense on fire. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.